Hello there, I am Fernanda Paiva taking you on a journey around the astrological transits of the week from Friday to Friday. So picking Venus Day for some reason. And here I am. So before that, I think what we're going to be covering today is very, very important because it is a new moon eclipse. So it's the kickstart of an eclipse season, the first eclipse season of 23. So this is a kind of an important one. And as you're just seeing around, every time there's an eclipse, there's big commotion. Everybody is, oh my God, what does that mean? How do I find, the meaning for this in my chart, in my life? So we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about this really, because that's the big one for this week. But before that, how are you all doing as per? I mean, I want to have a little catch up time. I used to always share a little bit about my journey in relation to astrology, I guess the midheaven in Leo maybe, and the personal journey connected to my work. So I realized that I think more than an allergy, I think I've been having some kind of health issues, maybe, beyond like some kind of infection and etc. Because it took me so long to recover. I mean, I can say like I've been in Newquay again. You can see different background behind me, and I've been in Newquay in Cornwall now for a week. I think it's exactly a week. So last time, my last video, I was in my brother's house in London, and I was just setting off to come to Cornwall. And yeah, here I am. And I have to say, I mean, I've been here for a week. A couple of days that I could only sleep, I have to say. And it's wow. It really baffles me like how that really caught me. Like the whole March was quite stressful, and the combination of that full moon on my natal moon. So you see how that's such an important point. Is like bring that into your chart. Whatever we're going to be talking about in terms of the eclipses, don't forget to bring that to your chart, because if you don't place it in your chart, you don't know how personally that's going to be affecting you. And sometimes an eclipse might not be as intense as a full moon, previous full moon, for example, like this one now that happened on my natal moon, because it is not activating anything personally to me. So, for example, so I really highly encourage you to find your chart, find your little degrees there. And every time I share the transits for the week, you place them, you do the work, you do the homework, and you place them personally there for you. You see what they're doing personally. And you can write on the comments as well. I'll be more than happy to help you find that if you need to find, or to help you interpret as well, which is one of my favorite things about astrology, is the interpretation business. So if you need, some help to interpret that in a constructive way, again, if you just found me right now, I'm Fernanda Paiva working with Constructive Astrology, which is about growing. So astrology for growth rather than moaning. So we're not going to be here talking about how everything can go wrong with this eclipse, but how can we use this eclipse in a positive way? Okay, there's eclipse in everything else astrology related, really. I am planning as well to do videos on personal natal transits and natal chart as well. So 2 more videos on top of this one I'm doing already on Fridays. That's still, to come. I'm just waiting to recover. And I want to be like very organized with these videos as well, so I can bring you something really quality and really nice as well. So very interesting. Health-wise for me, this last week was just catching up with health, trying to work as much as I could. I still had, a couple of clients and beautiful readings, but most of my energy was going into healing, like properly speaking, just healing and recovering. I'm feeling good again, like on my basic sort of good well-being, so I can progress and I can continue doing the things that I love doing. I'm doing more of the things that I love doing, which is my goal. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking is an interesting process really to be sharing all of these in these videos as well as the transits, because I am like regathering myself and rethinking, my sort of my image. A lot of things are gonna change. A lot of things are gonna change in the next in next year, let's say, I think a lot of things will be a lot more solid in terms of how I come across, the place I do my videos from, like all of these things. I've been like doing a lot of daydreaming about those and like how to do those. Anyhow, so this is a tiny little bit of my process, as I usually like to share it a little bit, not overly indulging in it, but just to share, just to show how I kind of make use of astrology myself. And, reminding you, if you've seen the other videos, you know that. If you're finding me right now, I am having a Saturn transit to my Sun and my Mercury in Virgo. So there's an opposition from Saturn. And I really do feel that this whole slowing down is kind of related to it. And the health, as well, like getting a little sick and taking longer to recover as well. And so then I have to rethink strategies and be with myself and really sift through what's really important in my life. So if you're having a Saturn transit, that's a little key to work with that energy, is to slow down, to look after yourself, look after your health, but also to rethink strategies and to really be focused on what's the most important thing for you. So that's like an interesting way of sharing a little bit of this astrological knowledge, bringing a little bit of personal journey into. So let me share my screen as per, and we're going to be looking into the transits of this week as promised. And please do share in the comments. Give a like in the video if you do like it. I know most of my audience is more of like my age, a little bit older as well, and I didn't used to like subscribe to YouTube channels or give likes to videos either, because I never thought it in that way, because I'm sort of more used to different social medias. But it is really helpful to get the message across. So if you think it's valid and is useful in some way for you, if I'm being of service, which is my main journey as a Virgo, is to serve you, is to serve people and the world in general. So if you think that's being of service, please give it a like and a subscribe as well, because that's going to help me to spread the message across, to really more people will have access to it. That's how the algorithms work, I guess. So let's have a look at the transits then. Enough of me and my journey and my personal journey. So here we have the transits for today. So Friday is a little bit earlier, really. It's like 4:57 a.m. But it's all based on the new moon, when we get to the new moon, so I don't need to move so much. There is the waning of that grand trine in water that I talked about. So a lot of potential emotional healing that we talked about, and especially when it comes to self-assertion, because planet Mars connected to Saturn and South Node as well. So constructive action when it comes to emotions, or creating a sense of emotional security, right? That's the feeling I have. So tomorrow, Saturday, we have moon in Aquarius. Again, remember, moon is like passing moods, really. Like, it's interesting to keep an eye. It's interesting to have a moon journal as well, if you have that, and to keep notice of how the signs shift and how you perceive those moments emotionally in terms of your moods, because that really helps to understand astrology as well. So there we have moon in Aquarius, moon conjoined Saturn on Sunday, so that's interesting. In my highlight, the feelings of Saturn. In fact, one of the things I wanted to mention as well, I didn't say it before. So today, Saturn is at the exact degree of that South Node in Scorpio. So that grand trine that was slowly forming, but a little bit wonky because the planets move at different speeds. Now Saturn is in an exact trine to the South Node. So I do feel that a lot of karma that can be left behind. Saturn is the planet of karma, and the South Node is the point that's connected to karma as well, to the past, to past lives, to past conditionings, to the old ways that we used to do things. So when we think about the South Node, we think about the more shadowy side of the sign that's traveling through, right? So the South Node in Scorpio will be talking about the more shady side of Scorpio, and the intensity, the crisis sort of junkie, you know, always creating a crisis one after another, and you know, can't just live in peace. So that Saturn trine to that South Node now, I think that's one of the key characteristics of this week as well, which is interesting with the kickstart of that eclipse season as well. So this is still that big theme of letting go and karma, but even more so with the exact trine. Remember, trines are connected with removal of obstacles. So removal of obstacles, so we can focus a little bit more on expressing the energies of Taurus, which is kind of still pointing at as a kind of a spiritual growth, a collective spiritual growth there. We're sort of learning how to be a little bit more like that, right? And if you have it natally, even more so. I mean, the lunar nodes is such an interesting point in the chart, really. I mean, I might do a whole video about that because it truly is fascinating. Cool. So Saturday, look, 4:06. So it's very, very tight still, that trine between the two, which I think, you know, when the moon comes conjoin Saturn on Sunday, it will activate that trine to the south node there as well, in Scorpio. So emphasizing that energy. Okay, so Monday, and here we have Sun still at 26 Aries, Mars at 11 Cancer, coming to square that Chiron, but not just yet. You know, that transit is going to become more and more like loud, you know, louder and louder as it approaches to its exact, to its perfection, basically. Once it perfects, we're going to be able to feel it even more. Acting on behalf of others, acting as, you know, defending others, defending family, defending the family honor, versus your own autonomous self, right? We have that Chiron Aries for ages, and we are working a lot with the wounds connected to our sense of autonomy, our sense of individuality and independency as well, doing things by ourselves, for ourselves. And I think when the nodes shift as well later this year for, you know, Libra, Aries as well, we're gonna have even more of that flavor coming through, right? So it's almost like we're learning how to be stable, so we can learn how, you know, that next step of the individuality there as well, the courage to be ourselves. Tuesday, moon enters Aries, and that's when it becomes interesting. Now, I think, you know, when it comes to eclipses, the energies are very intense indeed. They are extra intense if they're activating your chart, if they're placed somewhere in your chart, if it's on the day of your birthday, if it's on the day of, you know, if it's on top of your Mars, of your natal ascendant, you know, then you're bound to feel that even more strongly. I feel eclipses to be watersheds. They're very much connected with like kind of a point, you know, a division there that's, you know, something becomes, especially with the full moons, really, I would say, because there's a more dramatic energy connected to, whereas with the new moon, it's still a kind of a planting of a seed. It is a watershed, but it's a planting of a seed. So there is this kind of sense of something that is quite extraordinary about to begin. You know, there's a sense of extraordinariness with it. Let's put it that way. But new moons are usually quieter. There is a sense of quietness with it. We're not quite clear about how this is going to turn out. Whereas with the full moon, there is a kind of an urgency and a drama about it. That's like, there's no way we can ignore it, right? I mean, I was talking about the full moon a couple of weeks ago, our last full moon, and then it was massive. It was like, I can't ignore it anymore. My flights are getting delayed. I'm very tired. I'm getting sick. You know, my plane landed in the wrong airport. It's like I kind of would turn up the volume about 3 times, so I couldn't ignore what's going on with me. So I think the full moon eclipse especially is very much like that as well, if it is activating something in your chart. Now, in terms of what to do with it, I would suggest to be quiet with that energy as much as you can, because the energies of the eclipse, they are very transformative, and then sometimes it might urge us to take action, it might urge us to do something about it, and but we might not be in the better state of mind to do it, or in the right state of mind to do it. We might be very impulsive. Sure, later on, things kind of flow into some place somewhere. I'm not saying that's going to be deadly, but if we can sit with these feelings, with these anxieties, with this, with all the stuff that's been brewing inside and it's wanting to come up, especially because Mercury will go retrograde during eclipse season. Now that's a very interesting one as well. And it will be urging us to go inwards, to rethink a lot of things, to rethink our values in the situation. Okay. So first of all, place this new moon in your chart, place this full moon in your chart as well, the eclipse season, and you can have a better guidance, a better sense of what does that mean to you, new moon. So let's say 29. So let's go to the day of the new moon eclipse. Oh, the 20th. There we go. So that new moon eclipse will happen at 29 degrees Aries. So the very, very last degree of Aries, so very powerful, like the last punch of Aries, is the second new moon in Aries this month as well, which I think is quite interesting symbolically as well. Like put, an extra oomph on the Aries side and the Aries house in your charts as well, and the Aries planets in our natal charts as well. So it's definitely urging this new beginning to take place in connection to personal action and autonomy as well. I think a lot about autonomy and the courage to be yourself, to not care about what other people think, that you should do or you should be, or how you should behave, or who you should behave with, or to really kind of say, you know what, thanks for your opinion, but I stand by my own values. That's the North Node in Taurus, and I take action autonomously. That's the Aries, energy there as well. So have a look at where 29 Aries is in your chart, because if that's in the 7th house, for example, that would be a new seed, a complete new beginning connected to the house of relationships, right? Partnerships, business partnerships, partnerships where you have more of a voice, finding your voice in your love relationships as well. So you respond more, you impose a little bit more what you want and when you want, you stop following it so much. Or the other way around, if you've been imposing yourself too much, it is about healing that within yourself, balancing out, coming out of that sort of pendulum effect, going all or nothing, is all like either everything that I want when I want, or I would just follow what my partner wants. Finding a little bit of that balance there, that middle ground. But if it's in the 10th house, it will be connected to your personal role, to your public role. Who are you in the world? What are you doing in the world? If it's in the 6th house, it's your daily job, your daily routines. All of that 29 Aries is in my 6th house. So I've been talking about how ill I've been feeling. Yeah. Oh, are you scared about this eclipse? Oh my God, do you fear that something is going to go wrong? Not really, but it's definitely making sense with everything that I've been feeling so far. And the need to change my lifestyle, the need to change my routine as well. It's all kind of making sense with the other transits as well. So that new moon eclipse is also talking about that. So think about the new moon eclipse and this kickstart that's happening on Thursday as a bridge. I love to think about the imagery of the bridge. So the bridge, when we're crossing a bridge, we're neither. We're not here and we're not there. We're sort of in between, right? We're in between two different parts. And I feel that with eclipses, and eclipse season is a little bit like that. We're not yet in the life that we created, or that we're going to create, that we want to create, that we're urging ourselves to create, or that we know we want, or that's waiting for us, or however you want to see it. And the life that we've been having so far, that doesn't belong to us anymore. We're sort of in between those two. I remember I bought a book about tarot, which is very interesting. And by the way, I'm thinking about including a little bit of tarot in my channel as well, because I love the imagery. I just love the images of the cards. I find them so conducive to getting our juices, the imagination kind of flowing. So anyhow, there was a book I bought that had, it was sort of like dissecting symbols in astrology and in tarot cards, but it was like going really literally by symbols. So rather than talking about card by card, it was like all the cards that have bridges on it, for example. And that's why I remembered the imagery of the bridge being a very powerful one, that we're sort of in this sort of we're halfway through. So think about this eclipse season as this sort of moment, and don't rush to cross that bridge or to burn that bridge as well. It's like stay in that uncomfortable place of not yet knowing how you're going to manifest this, but thinking about what would you like your life to look like, especially in the area that Aries is placed, and especially with the personal planets that are involved in this as well. Um, Another important point connected with this new moon eclipse is that it's a square to Pluto. And it's a square, it's an outer sign square, and we almost lose it. We're like, but Aries and Aquarius is a sextile to each other. Well, it's a 0 degrees Aquarius, it's a 29 Aries, so it's almost Taurus. So we're almost like an exact square here. Is a very tight one, in fact, because the sun is 49 minutes. So in like 10 minutes, 11 minutes, it would be in Taurus. So it's like less than a degree apart, the square between the sun, moon in Aries to that Pluto in Aquarius. So for me, that urges even more the sense of regeneration, the sense of real transition, and the struggles connected with that, someone commented on one of my posts saying that rationally I understand that the change needs to be made and etc., but my ego doesn't understand and doesn't want to apply that. So I think that's a little bit the struggle with a square, and especially a square with Pluto as well, which is talking about regeneration and death. Again, not necessarily a literal death, let's quit all of this over fantastical like ways of reading the symbols. Life keeps going. And eclipse seasons, we have two every year. Like there's nothing absolutely, oh my God, out of the ordinary, it's part of the cycle. It's like cycles within cycles. And so the struggle between that sun moon with Pluto is also part of a cycle, So think it in that way. But it definitely does represent a kind of a struggle between wanting to hang on to the past still, wanting to hang on to the group, perhaps, that Pluto in Aquarius. Is again bringing themes of selfishness and individuality versus, community in that case, because it's Aquarius, and the other as well, focusing on the other. Fire signs are focused on themselves a lot of the time. And the air signs are much more focused on the other. Like, what do you think? What do you want? How do you see, the world? So there is a struggle there between the two, which will be very much part of what I think we should be sitting with and reflecting on. Where can we bring balance in our lives in connection to this? How can we let go of the extremes there? Are we being extremely selfish? Are we being extremely focused and hidden behind the group? What's going on there? Which I think is a very important one, and is reflected by that square between Mars and Chiron as well. Mars in Cancer wanting to protect and being very self-protective as well and almost shy. And that Chiron Aries talking about that wound connected with self-assertion, expressing your anger in healthy ways, expressing what you want as well. We're learning how to set healthy boundaries, right? I mean, to ghost someone or to ignore someone, that's not necessarily healthy boundaries, and so anyhow, I do feel that this is a very important part of this eclipse. But again, it's the kickstart of an eclipse season. It won't stop after this new moon. There's a big energy that stays with us, and on the 21st of April is the beginning of Taurus season, which is really interesting. I mean, that's where we're gonna have the full moon eclipse as well, and also pay attention to this degree here. So 15 degrees Taurus, the Mercury, is when Mercury turns retrograde. So just a couple of days after the new moon. Here we have, look, it's in red. Planets in red in my software as they're going backwards. So Mercury will go backwards 2 days after the new moon. So this is a big one. It's like, don't take action yet. Don't make big statements yet. You might change your mind and you might suffer the consequences later. You know, it's great for you to use as an alembic, they call it. I don't know if my pronunciation is good, but like, you know, when you read all these books about alchemy, and especially Carl Jung ones, when we're talking about alchemy in relation to psychology, it's like burning inside that container. And so you really like put the lid on that container and let it burn and purify and become something else, right? It's the power of transformation through fire. So I feel that this new moon eclipse and these eclipse season in particular has a little bit of that quality, especially because Mercury is going to go retrograde. Yeah. So don't rush. Envision all of the things Aries related in your chart, in your, you know, personal planets, in your life as well. How would healing the Aries principle look like in your life? You know, how would it look like if you didn't care about what people think? Or how would it look like if you had the courage to state, you know, who you are, without playing games, without manipulating? You know, that's the South Node in Scorpio. So very interesting indeed because of that Mercury going retrograde. And also, I just want to mention the previous eclipse season, just so you connect your own dots, because I think past transits are good for that. They're not good for wallowing into the past and being there and just crying because everything went wrong, but to think about it in this way, like, all right, this is where I was when that eclipse was happening. And how has my life changed? What has happened since then? So the last new moon eclipse that we had was in October 22, so it was the 25th of October, and it was at 2 degrees the Scorpio. So it's right here on the other side, 2 degrees Scorpio. It's still square to that Pluto placement, and you know, in opposition to the one that's happening now. Yeah, giving us a bit of a perspective from what began on the 25th of October. Now, do you remember what was starting there for you? You know, I mean, for me, if I think about it, I definitely can think about all of these marketing courses I was doing, especially in October, because that's when I finished my master's. So it was like beginning to look at my astrology practice with new eyes and being like, hold on a minute, I got to do something with this. So there was definitely a sense of that. Now this new moon is falling on my 6th, so maybe it's about me applying that and learning how to have a daily routine and a daily ritualistic life in order to support that, in order to put into place and, you know, make it happen. Basically, that's a Virgo house, right? Make it more practical. So the seeds were there with that new moon, you know, eclipse in Scorpio as well, and the urge to transform my practice and to do something else, something new. And the full moon eclipse was on the 8th of November, and it was at 16 degrees Taurus. So now we're gonna have a full moon eclipse. That's gonna be a 14 Scorpio. Again, we're like shifting sides, okay? There's something about the perspective that we're having. We're shifting perspectives. We're seeing from both sides now, yeah? So think about what was happening. This is homework for you. Think about what was happening in October, the end of October, beginning of November, and compare to what's happening now and see if there is any shift, if there's any connection between where you headed as well. And also, interestingly, isn't it? I love the harmony of, you know, of planetary movements and how beautifully they move. Mercury will be retrograde on that degree, you know. I mean, it just said that the last full moon eclipse was in November and it was at 16 degrees Taurus. Look at that Mercury. It'll go retrograde at 15 degrees Taurus. We also have Uranus at 17. So something is being awakened from the shock that we had in the 8th of November with that full moon. You know, something became really clear. So what was going on there for you? because that's going to give you clues about what to sit with during this eclipse season. Eclipse season is a great time for meditation. Meditate upon what do you want to create, how do you want to direct these energies. Think about having this magic wand that's really powerful, and if you don't know where to point it, you just set your whole house on fire. Yeah, so I don't want to sound alarming or anything, but like think about the eclipse season and the eclipse energy a little bit like that. So take care, take good care of that wound, because you can recreate the structures of your life, but you can also like set the whole thing on fire and purge yourself from things that you wanted to see growing instead. All right. So this is it. I think I'm giving you loads of things to chew on, to think about. Let me know in the comments about the tarot cards. Are you interested in tarot imagery as well? Because I love them, and I think they're very helpful to think about, astrology and to use some of these images. For instance, I said I was gonna go. Let me just show you one image that I've been thinking about. Oh, I changed the order of everything. Never mind. That's okay. I'll find it. But I've been really considering either doing some readings, picking just a couple of, keep it simple. I don't want to go overboard and overdo things. Then I cannot keep up with, I mean, my third house is ruled by Saturn. I'm quite meticulous when it comes to communication, and that's very important to me. So I don't want to do something that I can't keep up. I was just thinking about picking one or another, when I'm talking about constellation or planets in the chart, and things like that. I mean, I do think about Taurus and the North Node in Taurus a lot when I see this card. That's the Nine of Pentacles. And it is a card of, maybe I should stop sharing my screen so you can see it a little bit bigger. There you go. So this is a card that really makes me think of the North Node in Taurus. And May is going to have a great emphasis in Taurus. And that North Node in Taurus as well. Jupiter will move to Taurus. I mean, I'll go through all of that slowly. Don't worry. But I think that's a great, beautiful imagery to have on your wall, for example. I used to do that a lot, like get cards, a little bit of blue tack and pin them on my wall. Help me to really get in touch, not only in touch, but really get a relationship with that principle, with that archetype somehow. So I think for Taurus, which is what's going to be greatly emphasized in May, is brilliant to have that. It's brilliant to have that one as well, to be honest. And I know it's a couple, and it does bring a sense of a Venus in Libra as well, because of the couple relationship, but still Pentacles. Pentacles is the element of Earth. And so there's definitely a kind of a Taurian feeling of enjoying the daily, daily makes me think of Virgo, but enjoying the luxuriousness of being alive and having your senses and having an abundance. It's abundance. These are cards of abundance, which I think is one of the things that Taurus really appreciate, right? Okay, so I got a bit of a stranded on a tangent. Let me know if you're interested in tarot cards in any way. Bringing more of these imageries here as well. Potentially even doing a weekly video or something about tarot as well. Anyhow, I am wishing you a wonderful, transformative, powerful, beautiful eclipse season. Let me know in the comments where is the eclipse falling in your chart. What was going on for you in October and November? If you can see a connection between these two seasons now. Give it a like to the video if you watched so far. I mean, that means maybe you liked it. So give it a like, and that will help me a lot. It will help to get this message across. And also subscribe as well if you haven't, because that also really helps the message to get across. So yeah, in the meantime, I'm gonna be taking a lot of self-care because I'm still a little under the weather, getting better but a little under the weather. And this is a great, actually, in fact, you should also take a lot of great self-care now, because of the eclipse season. I mean, new moons are great times for taking self-care really seriously, but during the eclipse even more. So this is what I'm going to be doing. And next time you see me, I'll be somewhere else. And I can't remember where I'm going to be because I can't keep up. But I'll be seeing you all in a week. Wishing you a wonderful transformative time and restful as well, hopefully. So see you later.